twatted in New York City together, didn't we?
Yeah.
I had a lot to drink that day, mate, and I woke up the next day and I thought I'd been hit by a fucking semi-trailer.
I've thought a lot about libertarianism over the years, because I remember when libertarianism first became like really big, around the time Obama was entering office, Bush was leaving office. I was very frustrated by libertarianism as somebody who's a Marxist, and I was like, these people are waking up, but they're waking up wrong. Like, don't they get it? The problem is capitalism. I thought a lot about this, though. I will say that, there are good things about libertarianism. And one of them is that I think there's a lot of people who really have a desire to create. They really have a desire to go out and build something, to start their own business, to do creative stuff, to, launch a tech startup, and that is really good. And that there's that, that whole American dream, that spirit of growth, that there's a lot of young people that are really attracted to that and really have big dreams. They want to go out and do things, and they feel restrained by the society we live in. The society we live in is not very kind to nonconformists, and not very kind to intelligent people. And they have a lot of frustration, and they feel like, I'm capable of doing more with my life. I'm capable of going out and doing something and building, and I'm not living up to my potential, and society is getting in my way. And I feel like those feelings in a lot of cases are very justified. I would disagree about the reason for them. They would say, well, the answer is, free markets, privatize everything. But I think that they're right in how they feel, and I can sympathize with a lot of those feelings. And that's one thing I've kind of racked my brain and tried to kind of understand how a lot of young libertarians see it. And yes, there is a feeling among a lot of young people, young men in particular, but many young women and people of all different nationalities, that their potential as a human being is being squandered by the society we live in. They have something to contribute, and society has just kind of cast them aside. I mean, would you say that's a feeling that a lot of libertarians have?
I would definitely say it's a feeling I have, and a lot of that is just from learned life experience.
Caleb, you're being too nice. I need you to be a bit more angry. Is that okay?
I want to go back.
Yeah,
I do believe in the idea of the homestead principle as a principle, basically mixing your labor with something, owning it. I mean, I know that gets distorted in the current market for sure, and there's debates about what can be done about that, but I do like the actual principle overall.
Yeah, well, explain this one to me, because this is one thing I've tried to comprehend. Why are there so many libertarians who like China? That perplexes me. I see many articles over and over again. I'll see articles where people that are advocates of no government, people who think Obamacare is full communism, will look at China, where the government runs the banks and the government runs like 50% of the industries, and even the private companies are directly told what they're supposed to do by the government. And they will look at this highly statist, highly regulated, state centrally planned economy and go, that's capitalism. I have tried to understand that a lot, and I have some thoughts, but I want to hear what your thoughts are. Why are there so many libertarians?
I'll answer that, Caleb, because China is capitalist. I know you won't like that answer, but it is.
Well, I mean, okay, but I'm asking you though. I mean, China does have regardless, we can get into that later, but regardless,
this channel is called Fakertarians. Most of those people that like China would probably appear on here.
There's a huge amount of government involvement in the Chinese economy. I mean,
let me answer this real quick, okay?
Yeah.
I think it's because at the end of the day, so many libertarians love an authoritarian government. There are so many. Right. It is an absolute oxymoron, but it's why you saw so many libertarians falling over to the Trump train. They prefer a monarcho sort of idea of a strong man at the top, and then it's the Hoppe shit, and then let everything else trickle down, and eventually you end up with Ancapistan because this strong arm leader makes all the commies go away. That's
golden showers.
And the other thing is as well, a lot of libertarians, all they care about is, less taxes. That's it. For a lot of libertarians. And libertarianism is a lot more than that. So as Brian was saying, when Donald Trump came around and promised them, we're going to reduce your taxes, but we're going to be absolutely anal when it comes to the border, they didn't really care, because all they're caring about is the finance side of it. And that's not good enough. And that doesn't make you a libertarian. That makes you a conservative. We are not.
Right. It's people who want liberty for themselves and not for others.
Correct.
There's a lot of that.
Yes, absolutely. If your libertarianism isn't liberty for all, then you're a fucking conservative.
Yeah, well, one time there was somebody who made a comment in response to where I was pointing out, my position is that China is socialist. It's a command economy. I mean, the government controls the economy, a lot of free market stuff there. And there was somebody who made a comment in response to me that I thought was actually, they had a good point, which is that China has a much bigger middle class than the United States does. And that, Russia also has a much bigger middle class, right? And that small business owners are almost promoted and supported by the Russian and Chinese governments. They do a lot. And that libertarians, as small business owners, they respect that, right? And that they see the Chinese government or the Russian government doing a lot to kind of build up this middle class, small business owner layer of their economy. Yeah, the stuff at the top is all run by the government, but that middle class is propped up and is an essential part of it. And they see that and they like that, and that makes sense to me. And that part of the reason the Soviet Union fell was there was this layer of people, engineers, technicians, college professors, artists, filmmakers, who felt stifled, by the Soviet system, and rightly so. I mean, they felt like their potential wasn't being utilized, and that there was kind of stagnation in the Soviet Union because they weren't really tapping into that entrepreneurial energy to build socialism. And that's why I think Deng Xiaoping had a lot of really good points in his critique of Mao and the Gang of Four, was that, is that you need that layer. You need creative people. You need a middle class. But my position is that, banking and the economy overall, you should have a state central plan like they do in China. But, that's an interesting point. And that, I have a friend who's an airport bartender, and he told me that before the pandemic, he would meet, Southern conservative free market guy who just came back from China and loves China and thinks China is like what America should be. He would meet that guy over and over and over again. And it was a little bit perplexing. So there you go.
Yeah. One of Lew Rockwell's writers lived in China. I remember. I actually had correspondence with him many, many years ago.
Was it Jared Taylor?
It wasn't Jared Taylor. No.
Wait, did Jared live in China?
No, I was just saying
okay.
Lew Rockwell published something from him a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no, it was another one of his writers, and we used to correspond. And I actually asked him that question a few times. That was many, many years ago, so I don't remember for sure. But I remember, he had a real love for the small business community of China. I remember him saying that it wasn't nearly as it was. I didn't like his answer here. You don't get in trouble if you don't make trouble. Well, I don't know exactly what that means, but at the same time, it was an interesting exchange of ideas. And there has always been that libertarian faction that has a great love of China.
Well, that is a weird thing when you say, because I've noticed that, having been to a lot of countries that the USA labels as authoritarian, I've noticed that in everyday life, there is a lot more like freedom. Like in Iran, I would see people riding motorcycles on the sidewalk all the time, and I was like jumping out of the way for these motorcycles, and in New York City, you do that, the police are going to grab you and, take your motorcycle, and that's it. And that in a lot of countries that are considered to be more authoritarian, it's kind of like, a lot of things are unregulated. There's just an understanding that, if you become a threat to the powers that be, the hammer comes down really, really quickly, and there's not much you can do about it. But that is a weird thing, whereas we're becoming more authoritarian in everyday life. I mean, kids don't get into schoolyard fights anymore, right? If a kid is punched by another kid, he just has to throw his hands up and say, "Teacher, come protect me," because if he punches back,
I wouldn't. I'd fucking smash his face out.
Right, you're right. But if you do that, then you get the same punishment as the kid who punched you in the face, right? And that in a weird way.
And they might say you're a terrorist of some kind.
Right. There you go. Right. And I mean, and so in a weird way, like it is odd that in some of these countries that are more authoritarian, there is more freedom in everyday life. People learn to fight their own battles. People kind of feel more empowered. But there is also there is an understanding that if you cross a certain line, the hammer comes down and you're done. So it's interesting to think about, I think.
There's like Iran, Jay John.
Yeah.
I'd say it's kind of two different types of authoritarianism, or I don't know, methods of authoritarianism, but I would say both of them are authoritarianism. I mean, sure. And I'm not going to give the U.S. any excuses. Like, obviously, I'll attack all the countries you like too, but the U.S. has the highest prison population per capita. There's all sorts of terrible shit going on over here.
There's more prisoners in the U.S.'s prison system than were held in Stalin's gulags.